Hello, my name is Marnie Makaborski. I'm an associate trainer with Art2Ride. This is my 15-year-old Andalusian Charlie, and we've been in the program for about 3 years now. I'm filming today with a GoPro camera, so I apologize for the distant video. We also go out of frame often, which I edited out, so those shots wouldn't take up too much time. Hopefully by the next submission I will have something more appropriate to film with. What you'll see today is a very typical session for us. We have incorporated some new exercises in our schooling sessions, along with receiving my new Peter Horobin saddle in October. I introduced Charlie to the half pass at a walk with Will's help when he was here for our New Jersey clinic. And we also started focusing more on the sitting trot, which I was not comfortable doing in my previous saddle. We have also been practicing our serpentines and leg yields at the canter. So you can see how Charlie is able to come right out into a stretch. I no longer lunge or do the work in hand prior to riding. However, we will go back to both of those exercises every year come spring. My horses get about 3 months off during the winter months since I do not have an indoor. So once the weather breaks, usually around March, I will take a month of just doing the in-hand work and the lunging to get them back in shape before I get on. It does set our training progress back a little bit, but I have noticed it takes less time each year to bring them back to the spot where they were when we stopped. So once we get established in our walk stretch, we then start to do our leg yields in the walk, which he does pretty well. It stays in rhythm. He steps under and looks quite effortless. So we'll do that on both sides of the arena, and then we move into our shoulder in the stretch. One of my favorite things about doing these submissions is being able to see the changes and progress the horses make. I have put in a few clips from prior years to show the difference in Charlie's body just at the walk. So here's a good shot of what he looks like now at the walk stretch. This is him in 2015, before we even started Art2Ride. You can see the huge dip behind the saddle, the irregular walk, and all the incorrect muscling. This is him in 2016. This is from our first submission. Still working on his longitudinal bend and stretch. And you can also see how this saddle puts me in a chair seat. This is from 2017. So still that dip behind the saddle starting to come up. And every year he becomes a little more freer and more swinging in his back and his walk. So I start to bring Charlie up in a working frame now, and we are going to change across the diagonal here. We have been working on lengthening across the diagonal, and you can see that there's little change. So I tried to let him out in his head and neck a little bit to encourage more of a lengthening. I still keep him in a working frame, and And I will do the same exercises that I asked of him in the stretch. So we'll start off with the leg yield and then end up doing the shoulder in. The biggest challenge I have in my equitation is bringing my shoulder blades down my back and bringing my chin in to set my head over my shoulders. It's something I do off horseback as well. It has become a major focus for me in my yoga classes. So although it has gotten better over the years, there's still room for improvement. My saddle itself has also helped tremendously with that. Being able to sit on something so well balanced and fit to me as well as my horse allowed me to feel the imperfections I was holding in my body, which in turn, of course, was masking the weaknesses Charlie was having in his body, which I couldn't address because I was too busy fighting my prior saddle to keep myself in position and balanced. I noticed in this video that I tend to ask for a maneuver before I get him stabilized in the working frame. Like here where I bring him up and immediately put him in a shoulder 4. I should have brought him up earlier and then put him into the maneuver. He does love to stretch, so he often talks me into letting him out, probably more often than I should. Another issue that I see throughout this video is how I need to keep my hands up and in front of me. They do often come out wide and to the sides. I'm riding with too long of a rein most of the time. So as we come around here, this is our first attempt of a half pass. So I will start with the shoulder 4, then add my outside leg to ask him to travel in the direction of the bend. He has a tendency right now to bring his haunches too far in, but what I'm looking for is that he continues to lead with his shoulders. So usually after every one of those, I will give him a little stretch circle just to recalibrate. This is new to us. We just started working on this when Will was here for the clinic. And we will try that again on this long side. He starts out okay. You can tell it's challenging for him. He loses rhythm immediately. There, gets a little better. And then you see the haunches come swinging in, and that's when I'll let him straighten out and stretch down again. Ask for a lengthening across the diagonal, and we'll do the same exercises on the other rein. So here's better timing. I bring him up, get him stabilized first, and then as we come around the corner, I'll put him into a shoulder 4, and then ask for the half pass. I was actually really happy with this one. And although he lost some rhythm, his haunches didn't fall out completely, and he kept it all the way pretty much to the center line. In hindsight, I should have stopped with the half pass there, since it definitely was the best effort thus far. But I do ask one more time on the next long side. After his little stretch break. And you'll see this one proves to be not as good as the last one, so we move on after this. So we start our trot work. I try starting him off in a working frame, and he just felt like he was struggling a bit, so I let him back out into the stretch for a few circles before I try to bring him up again. It was evident to me in this ride that we needed to practice going from the stretch to the working frame. So the next day, I actually, in our session, I just um, practiced that just at a walk, letting him stretch out, bringing him back up, and it did seem to help. You can see he gets a little unbalanced there from going from the stretch to the working frame. Sometimes it doesn't go as smoothly. So we'll start our leg yields at the trot. They are improving. We're still aiming for a deeper step under and more crossover, ideally. So a couple of those, and then we move on to our shoulder ins. There's always a bobble in the initial transition into the shoulder in, but then he stabilizes pretty quickly. Let him back out into the stretch just to recalibrate. And then we will start our sitting trot work. I've been starting the sitting trot the same way every time, so just starting off with a sitting a few strides on the circle so that we can both adjust, and then a few more strides to a half a circle, and if all goes well, then I can start sitting and trying the leg yields and shoulder in. Like I said before, we've only been practicing the sitting trot for a little over a month since I got my new saddle. So attempting all these maneuvers has its struggles for the both of us. With my old saddle, I just couldn't sit and balance myself properly to be comfortable, even asking for anything more than just sitting on a circle. It is funny how the same maneuvers that we've been doing all these years in the posting trot have an entirely new level of difficulty once you start sitting them. I also need to constantly remind myself to keep my hip flexors open and seat light by bringing my shoulders back much more in these exercises. It's very easy for me to get tight in my hips and back if I'm not conscious about um, keeping everything relaxed, which then brings me too far up on my seat bones, which in turn allows my head and shoulders to collapse again. So it's all part of muscle memory. I need to become second nature so that it becomes easy and effortless for me. And of course, go right back to the posting stretch. I always go back to my stretch circles at a posting trot or walk. So I start off the same way this direction. I'll just sit a few strides, get ourselves together. And then do the same exercises this direction. You can see as I come around here, I'm starting to get too tight in my hips. So we finished with that. Back to the posting stretch circle. And then we will prepare for our canter work. So we start off in a stretch, which his canter stretch has become more consistent. He's able to stretch deeper. Again, I would like to see my arms and my hands out in front of me, especially through bringing him up to working frame. Again, my reins are often too long. we go into our leg yields, which are improving. He can hold a steadier rhythm and not want to rush through them and away from my leg. We have been playing with Canter serpentines this year. I would like to see him stay straighter through the bend. You can see when he comes around this second loop that he kind of falls in and gets overbent in the neck. And then we finish with another stretch. And then break it down to the trot and let him stretch out again. I do give him a walk break in between canters this day. The canter is still Charlie's weakest gait, and that he doesn't have a whole lot of strength or stamina to stay over his back for long periods of time. This particular day was quite warm for November, and he was already working up a pretty good sweat under his winter coat. Really nice stretch there. I would normally do the same exercises in both directions at the canter, but since I did feel like he was losing steam, I didn't do the serpentines tracking right. So I'm just letting him have a nice walk break in the stretch to catch his breath. So as I start bringing him up to prepare the canter for this direction, he does get a little irregular in his walk, and he starts to anticipate the transition, especially as he comes around here. You can see a little better. I know it's far away. So I just have to wait it out until he settles. And I just keep softening him and getting him to stretch out with his neck a little bit more. And there he gets stable around the corner here. So the depart was actually pretty nice, although it happened in the corner where you couldn't see it, of course. But he does feel a bit more rushed to me this direction, and he's not as engaged over his back. So I already know we're going to make it short. I let him stretch down and he gets a little rushy. So I know he's nearing his end to as much canter as we are going to do today. So I do get one good leg yield out of him right here, which I was pretty happy about. And then so we call it quit there. Let him stretch back out. And then I'll bring him down to a walk. I did want to save some energy for the piaffe, which we have been practicing mounted this year. Again, Will had helped me with that quite a bit while he was here for the October clinic. So I normally do this up against the fence to help keep him straight, but I wanted the camera to get a good shot of it. And you will see as a result of that that his hind end does swing out, which is not ideal. So I adjust and bring both my legs back from my hips behind the girth a little bit. I get him moving forward because I don't want to start asking while he's backing up. Stretch up through my back and start alternating my legs left and right, letting him inch forward if he wants to. Since I want to encourage that it's a forward movement and his hind legs should want to come closer to his front legs by moving forward. And once again, this is Marnie Mack, and thanks for watching.